Okay, so welcome everybody. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Another session of Live with Hype, and we have Machar Reid here from Australia and from Tennis Australia. Machar, thank you very much. Good evening.
My pleasure, Amir. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. And you know, at Hype, we are in the last 5 months working very closely with brands and clubs and federations around solving real industry challenges. And most of the webinars and that we're sharing with the sports tech universe is around solving problems to, I would say, sport clubs, a lot of, I would say, NFL and the Premier League and baseball, etc., etc. And we have a unique opportunity today to talk about tennis. And just after U.S. Open is completed and the first, I would say, big tournament in tennis, which was with no fans. And I really, we know each other for a while now, and I know you're very hands-on. You're really, you understand innovation, you explore, you investigate, you travel the world for innovation. I think we met also during one of our events in France.
Yep.
And really fascinated to hear your thoughts. First of all, how was the US Open from your perspective around all this, preparation, COVID, and what did you learn from that?
Well, look, as a tennis lover, I think there was no better way to obviously finish the event than the battle we saw in the early hours of our morning anyway, with Dominic Thiem and Alexander Zverev. I mean, what a contest. Seesawing battle right to the end with Zverev taking it out 8-6 in the 8-6. Thiem taking it out 8-6 in the fifth. It felt like Zverev was going to get it at different points. And likewise with the women's final with Vika Azarenka going down to Naomi Osaka. So a brilliant result all around, brilliant spectacle, both finals. So that was fantastic to see. The US Open, I think, deserve a round of applause, really. They got it done in New York, really against all odds. There's a bunch of people out there, many stakeholders questioning whether it was the right move, but credit to them. They got the players in, they created the bubble, they got the event underway and put out a really cool broadcast-only event.
Yeah, just a shame they didn't have any big name out there in the last week.
Now, Thiem and Zverev would both describe themselves as big names, and so would Serena. But I know what you're saying. Obviously, Federer and Nadal, massive draw cards, and Novak on the men's side anyway went out in controversial circumstances. And look, when we talk about innovation, and that's going to be a decision facing us as an event, really, thinking about how we're going to use Hawkeye. Are we going to use Hawkeye in the traditional sense that allows us to officiate as we do and allows the players to challenge calls as they do? Or are we going to experiment with Hawkeye Live, which essentially sees a chair umpire control the court, but we're engaging technology to make the decisions on behalf of the lines people? So that's not something
like VAR.
Well, in essence, yeah, similar, not quite, but a derivative or variation, if you like. But had we seen that at the US Open, ironically enough, Novak wouldn't have hit the lines person. So anyway, that's something that's not a reason to do it, of course, but it's something that I think each of the sports are grappling, or each of the events, tennis events anyway, are grappling with how to best engage Hawkeye over the next sort of 6-month period.
I heard somebody wrote that had it not been Djokovic, if it was maybe Nadal or Federer, they wouldn't be thrown out. And then he added, they wouldn't be thrown out because they wouldn't do that.
Well, I probably can't comment on that, but I think the rules of tennis are pretty clear. And look, I think it will present an interesting question for ourselves as an event heading into the Australian Open, whether we want to go with the Hawkeye Live solution versus Hawkeye as we've seen it in the past. One thing from a fan engagement point of view that it does throw up, of course, is as soon as you go down the path of Hawkeye Live, and we've seen that at some of the ATP showcase events near year's end, is it removes some of the theatre of the challenges. So at the moment, the players are obviously able to challenge. The fans really engage with that. They look up at the big screen and see whether the ball's going to go in or out. With Hawkeye Live, there's not quite the need for that type of challenge. So I think
it will make the games longer, no?
Not so much, but I think for the tournament directors and event organisers, it presents obviously an opportunity, but equally in part a dilemma, because it's something that fans really connect with. Obviously, in a broadcast-only event, we don't have fans in the stands, if indeed tennis events go down that path. But if we've got fans in the stands, it's something that I think a lot of tennis viewers really are drawn to.
Yeah. So, Machar, tennis. Let me share I would say Joe Block in the street opinion about innovation in tennis, and please correct me because I'm probably wrong. Tennis with great innovation around Hawkeye, which was his year, 15 years?
Yeah, it's been some time.
You would expect tennis to continue the leadership of innovation and bring some tons of new innovation, but that's still traditional, long game, losing the young generation, Z generation, which will never be able to sit with me and see five like yesterday or your morning. What's happening with innovation in tennis? What are you, what's your story?
Well, you're right. Hawkeye was, crikey, almost 2 decades ago when it was first introduced. But I think in thinking about innovation in different ways, what you've touched on there is almost the format of the competition. So I think what the sport has tried to do is recognise that it needs, sure, some long form, but equally some shorter form content for fans. So you've seen that with attempts to introduce fast forward tennis, so sets to 4 games rather than your conventional 6 with a tie break. You've seen the Grand Slams introduce tie breaks in the 5th sets in an attempt to bring close to those thrillers, if you like. And equally, you've seen even ourselves as a tennis body in Tennis Australia partnering with groups like the USTA in introducing the Laver Cup. So whilst we as individuals in the sector are drawn to technological innovation, oftentimes, the Laver Cup's a good example of an event format that's been introduced with real success over the last 3 years in partnership with the likes of Roger Federer, so that we've got another team event that oftentimes our sport's criticised for not having.
Got it. So you're saying there are attempts to bring additional, I would say, innovation to the format of the game. So there could be a chance where in 2 years' time, Wimbledon will be just a set of tie breaks, yeah?
I don't think that'll happen, but they've obviously reduced a limit to their 5th set. We remember that, or those that love tennis will remember that Isner Mahut match of years ago that kind of went across 3 days. So we've recognised that's not ideal for a number of stakeholders, including the players perhaps. So yeah, we've innovated event formats, but I think, again, touching on ourselves, we're drawn to the technological innovation, the likes of Hawkeye and so forth. But from an event point of view, I think we've made some inroads. There's tie-break 10s. There's a whole bunch of different formats that tennis players can now engage in.
Got it. So on our previous conversation, you mentioned to me that when we look at innovation in tennis, we're looking at 3 elements or 3 layers. We are looking at the event side, we're looking at the performance, the professional player side, and the grassroots, amateur players. Can you elaborate about the difference and what kind of innovation, if you can give some practical examples of what's happening behind the scenes in all those 3 domains?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think that's one of the things with the tennis federations, particularly Tennis Australia, the USTA, and even the French Federation. The All England Club in the UK is a little bit different with their relationship with Wimbledon, but a federation like our own, we essentially run three businesses in one. We're a not-for-profit. We put on events like the Australian Open, partner with the ATP and the ATP Cup. We also put on the Labour Cup with our partners. So that's the event side of our business. And obviously there's a real digital focus, including broadcast on that. And then we've got the performance realm, which is all about trying to produce the next Ash Barty, the next Nick Kyrgios, next Leighton Hewitt, so to speak. And then you've got the grassroots, trying to make tennis, in our world anyway, the #1 sport of choice in Australia. So with innovation in mind, or that footprint, you've got different applications in each of those three. So we can absolutely go into some of those weeds if you'd like.
Got it. So you focused, what about, can you elaborate a little bit on the grassroots example of innovation that is happening there? And also the performance side. I know that, speaking about Djokovic, he's involved in one of the startups, I think it's Pixelot, I'm not sure, in the industry. What can you share about innovation, maybe some examples?
Yeah, look, I'll start with even the broadcast side. So obviously broadcast with our event upcoming, fans at home is going to be a real focus, but equally those fans that do attend the event will be centre of our attention also. But with the fans at home in mind, we're obviously really enthused, like the entire sports marketplace really, about immersive experiences. So we've been partnering with a group out of the US and Spain for quite a while now in YBVR that are looking to provide those immersive experiences in the comfort of your own home. So that's an exciting
reality.
Yeah, virtual augmented reality into the mixed reality kind of world. So that's really exciting. I don't think adoption has quite been what we'd all expected it to be in the virtual space. So headsets have posed a real barrier. So we're exploring new ways to kind of do that. In the grassroots sector, I think one of the challenges that tennis has confronted for the best part of the last decade or two, the perception's been that you've got these tennis clubs that have got locks on the fences. There's no way to really get in. You've got to have a special key. You've got to know someone who then opens the gate for you and you get in, or you've got to be a member of the club. So increasingly federations and clubs are looking at technological solutions that allow you to book courts online and present you with a really seamless experience when you turn up. You're essentially keypad entry at the gate. If you're playing at night, the lights turn on automatically and away you go. So it's really democratizing the tennis experience, allowing more players to access it more freely. So that's a really cool one, I think, at the grassroots level, and you're seeing that begin to pick up in different parts of the world, really. Performance side, the performance space is really interesting. It's fascinating. Again, compared to a lot of other sports, the rules of our sport in some ways actually prohibit the use of analytics during an actual event, during a tournament. So that's as distinct from a lot of the team sports where you'll see analytics on offer, coaches can engage with those analytics and then pass them on to the players. Whereas we've got some barriers to entry. Obviously, coaching is not allowed.
Can you give an example on statistics? Because the number of aces I see during the game. What statistic is not allowed?
So yeah, it's a quirk of fate. So before you even get to statistics, if you like, coaching is not allowed. Unless one of the tours like the WTA has done more recently, they've actually allowed for on-court coaching during some of their events. But say at Grand Slams, not allowed. Many of the ATP events, not allowed. ITF events, not allowed. So immediately you've kind of got this scenario where it's individual versus individual, which is a really cool and unique aspect of our sport, but we don't permit coaching. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't happen at times, but we don't permit it according to the rules of the game. So the next level below that is we don't permit coaching. Now we don't permit technically the use of analytics. But like you say, something like the number of aces I hit flashes up on screen if I'm in the stadium playing. How actionable that intel is for a player, debatable. But if you went down to the letter of the law, technically it's not in the spirit of the rules of the game. So I think in some respects, when you think about the use of wearable technologies in tennis, or even the use of analytics, the rules of the sport have actually prevented it in a way from really taking hold and all players and coaches kind of buying in. So I reckon that's an area to watch over the next 5 years.
Absolutely, an area that it reminds me, and maybe it's a wrong example, but I'll say it anyway. When I went to see a Premier League game 5 years ago with one of the owners of a club in London, and he shared that he's not putting Wi-Fi in the stadium because it will distract the fans from enjoying the game.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so that's a contrary approach perhaps, but yeah, look, we're riddled with them ourselves as a sport, but as it relates to technologies that have become relevant in our world or ecosystem in a performance sense, we've had the likes of Fusion, which is with their smarter-based solution, delivering some real value across our sports science, medicine, and athlete high-performance staff. We've had the likes of Swing Vision, a new entrant into the AI space, trying to democratize tracking and coaching of athletes. Athlete AI, another group kind of in that automated match notation space. So we're slowly seeing some groups emerge that are delivering value into the sport.
Yeah. A quick question on, I know you've obviously been involved in the last 3-4 months in the Hype Global Virtual Accelerator, and I know it was quite challenging for you because it was not really Australia times, and we spoke a few times where it was middle of the night, your time. So apart from distressing your sleep, how was it for you? Was it, I know you're an innovator anyway. Did you really need this program to see what's happening? Was it worth your while?
Well, I'll tell you one thing it did achieve. It certainly upped my caffeine intake. So that certainly ticked that box. No, absolutely. Look, I think in my role within our group anyway, part of our responsibility certainly relates to scanning the marketplace, and groups like yourself and other accelerators out there really allow us to do that in a really efficient form. So what Ryan did with the accelerator alongside yourself and so on, you're able to very quickly survey what was relevant for that particular vertical, feed that back to us as stakeholders, allow us to pass our eye over those technologies, and then provide the opportunity in condensed form to connect with those startups and potentially pilot some of them, which is something that we've done. So needless to say, I don't think we would have come across a couple of those without your support. So absolutely, it was worth the late nights and the low caffeine. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Appreciated those words, Machar. Let's talk a little bit about the future. Yeah?
Yeah.
You're a young guy, but let's say but I will take my kids. I have a second generation now, another kids cycle, so 2 little kids. And let's say I want to take them to see tennis in 5 years' time. Yep. What game would I see? Let's say I have a sister who lives in Australia, in Melbourne. So let's say I come to see the Australian Open in 5 years' time, 2025.
Yeah.
How would let's it's only between us, yeah? How would this game look like in 5 years' time?
I don't know that the game will
have.
I don't know that the game will look materially different. It'd be great, I think, as a tennis tragic and someone who romanticizes about the sport. It'd be nice to see some more serve and volley, some more variation in the different game styles. So I think that'll return. You've already seen Alex Zverev, for instance, come into net quite a bit more with some success. So I think in 5 years' time, I'd imagine that would be a feature of the sport again. Needless to say, Ash Barty's injected the women's side with some variety also. So I reckon on court, that'll be a feature. I think the connection between coach and player during a match will look different. And I wouldn't be surprised to see spectators at home or in the stadium actually be privy to a little bit more of that interaction between coach and player, which will be novel. The WTA have started to do that, but I think that can go to a whole new level. And then I think the in-stadium experience with the use of the technology, the screens, the second screen that might be available to them in the palm of our hand, I think that'll look quite a bit different than it does today. The viewing experience at home, similarly. I think you're going to have multiple screens. I think the barriers to entry for virtual, augmented, and even mixed are going to reduce over time. So I think that part of it will be quite a bit different than what we see in our lounge rooms today.
Like if you look at Hawkeye, it's like amazing, groundbreaking technology. Is there anything in the pipeline for tennis? Like, is there, when the 5G will be, I'll be able to see a game on my table, like in 3D? What is the next big thing that will come to tennis?
Well, I think touching on Hawkeye, and I think sometimes we overlook just how significant they've become in the sports technology space. But the work Hawkeye's currently doing in pose estimation, already trying to pilot that with baseball, where they're essentially deploying three-dimensional markerless motion capture in a game environment. The intelligence that provides, not just to coach and dugout in a baseball sense, but the opportunity it provides to broadcasters and, truth be told, even potentially the betting market, I think that's something to behold. And we've not even as a sector quite wrapped our head around how that data could be used as it relates to the actual player. So I think from a Hawkeye point of view, as it relates to tennis, that's going to be their next big play. And that's not just going to be in tennis, that's going to be in all sport. I think it's fascinating. Beyond that, sorry?
No, absolutely. I think it will bring something new to the game.
Yeah. So beyond that, I'm still bullish as it relates to tennis in the analytics space. It's obviously something close to my heart, but I think we're only beginning to peel back the layers there in and around the strategy and tactics of the sport, and how AI, if you like, can genuinely get cut through at the coaching and the performance level.
What about esports in tennis? I spoke to one of the biggest groups in Tour de France.
Yeah.
And they shared, they have some, something which is big coming up in cycling will be professional cyclists competing virtually.
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess part of our investment thesis as a business, and equally when we consider the sports and entertainment technology ecosystem as a whole, we actually carve out esports as its own category or own vertical, and it's got tentacles everywhere. Ourselves as an organisation, we've invested in the AO mobile game, so that experience is available. We partnered with the group to deliver Fortnite into the Australian Open last year as an esports experience. So we're committed to the esports space, and I'm inclined to agree with you. That's only just emerging. Do I think that professional players, tennis players, are going to have virtual personas or feel the need to play esports? Perhaps as a leisure pursuit, but I don't see that replacing the game itself. I think that's going to be an entirely new set of athletes and personality.
Yeah. No, it's a new set of athletes. That's what he said. It's a different sports.
yeah, that'll drive that forward. And look, we had a chat with the IOC recently to get their take on it. And even their view is fascinating. They're trying to respond as the marketplace shifts and I think get their heads around collectively where it kind of fits moving forward as part of that Olympic movement.
Great. I think, we've now got some, I would say, a very quick snapshot of what's happening in innovation in tennis. And hopefully this opened the appetite to hear more. Machar, thank you very much. It's getting quite late in Perth. Enjoy the evening. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. See you all in the next Live with Hype. Bye for now.